Well, you can tell it's fall when different types of produce start popping up in stores, including some oddly shaped varieties of squash. And Sharon Ross from White Picket Produce is here to teach us what we can do with winter squash. All right, so I don't know if you know, but I don't know anything about vegetables. So squash is new to me.
I do know that.
I didn't even know that, that there was a thing as winter squash. So what is it?
Winter squash is a real hardy squash. It comes out in the fall. You can store it all winter long so that it stays for a long period of time. Unlike summer squash, which is zucchini and yellow squash, has a lot of water content. Winter squash is a lot hardier. It's great for roasting, for soups, those comfort foods that we love to eat during the winter.
I remember growing up, we used to keep them down in the cellar, which makes me sound 800 years old. But up north, when we dug down into the basements, they would stay there all winter long, and you'd always have squash.
Right.
Well, I guess that's good.
See, you learned something.
Quite unique. So there's a bunch of different types, and you brought some. Tell us about the ones you brought.
Okay, so the first one, and everybody's favorite, everyone is used to seeing it, is the butternut squash.
Okay.
They come in all different shapes and sizes. It is the crowd pleaser. It is buttery, nutty. If you're feeding a crowd, a large one, it goes a long way. So that's the butternut squash. The second one is acorn squash. Acorn squash can be a little bland, so you want to make sure that you're seasoning the acorn squash liberally with salt and seasonings. It is, again, the skin is edible, so you don't have to peel it, and it's great stuffed. So that's a great one to use, yeah.
And then the next?
The next is carnival. Not too many people.
Carnival?
Carnival
I've never
squash
seen that.
is so pretty on the plate.
It's a party.
It's kind of a cross between an acorn and a dumpling. Again, just beautiful, great stuffed. It's great squash to use.
And it's pretty for decoration.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've used it for decoration. I've never thought about eating it.
You can eat it. The next one is delicata. This one is my favorite because it's small. It's kind of like a squash that if you're cooking for 1 or 2 people, it's a great one to use. It's kind of called the sweet potato squash.
Okay.
It's so easy to work with. It cooks up really quickly, and you can eat the skin on that as well, so you don't have to peel it.
Okay. Who knew there were this many
know,
varieties?
right?
I would have thought they were all different vegetables.
I know.
I thought they all tasted alike.
Is kabocha or kaboka. It is, this one you can actually poke a few holes in, put the entire thing in the oven, roast it, and you can eat the entire thing.
Oh.
It is really creamy.
The outside
it's
too?
Great for soups. The skin is also edible on that one too.
Oh,
yeah,
I like
it's
that.
Great.
Who knew? And then the last
And
one.
then the last one, everyone knows this one too. This one's spaghetti squash. This has a very different texture than the other squashes. It's stringy like spaghetti. People are used to using it instead of spaghetti or pasta. If you're gluten-free, this one's a great option for you too.
Well, you just mentioned, it's stringy, but I've heard they're hard to cut. How do you get inside of it?
And it's sometimes people shy away from them because they're afraid of cutting off a finger while they're trying to prepare it. So
Valid concern.
That sounds like us.
I do have a trick. So I brought each of you a mini butternut squash to test. The first thing you want to do is make sure your cutting board is solid on the ground or on the countertop. Okay. So I put a wet paper towel underneath your little cutting board.
Oh, smart.
You then want to have a sharp knife. Dull knives cut fingers, so make sure you have a sharp knife. And then you want to take a fork, take your, and just poke a few holes in the skin. You don't have to bore a hole in it. Really, you just have to pierce the skin, just so that it doesn't explode. When you put it in the microwave for about 3 to 5 minutes.
Like a baked potato.
Oh, so
exactly.
So this has been microwaved for a few minutes. I thought it had a little give to it.
It has a little give to it.
Okay.
So then all you want to do is set it solidly on your cutting board, and your knife should just glide right through. Look at that.
That is easy.
Right through.
So the key is the microwave.
So you poke the holes in microwave for a couple minutes, and then you can cut it.
Exactly. And I say 3 minutes, but depending on the size of your squash, if you have a large one, it might
Linda's still struggling.
So if you do struggle, it might need to go back into the microwave for a couple more minutes.
Microwave.
There you go.
Okay, now if we roast these, do we take out the guts first?
Right, so the guts. This is what you get when you scoop out the guts. Now,
should you save it?
Was chicken.
I save it because when I make soup,
This looks like chicken.
I use the guts. That's where all the flavor is. So
Really?
I use that. I saute saute it just like you would a chicken stock. This is your guts for the stock.
Okay.
I saute it, I get the flavors to come out with some onion, then I add the water, I simmer it, and then strain it out when I'm ready to make butternut squash soup, and it is a game changer when you get. There you go.
Speaking of that, there are a variety of ways you can cook squash.
Right.
And you brought us some examples.
I did.
Tell us about, the different types of things that you can do with it.
Starting with acorn.
Acorn is a great one, like I said, to stuff.
Oh, I love that.
What did you stuff it with?
I stuffed it with just some onion, celery,
Veggies.
carrots, mushrooms, and then I had some quinoa, and I just added the quinoa instead of bread stuffing and baked it off. It is amazing.
So when I was growing up,
easy.
we made it sweet. We'd put like cranberries and apples or raisins and brown sugar and butter in it, and that made it like dessert, because that's how I got convinced I should be eating squash.
It's so good. Yes, and that's a good way to introduce it to children. Make it into a dessert, make it something a little bit sweeter, and they will crave it.
Right.
It's really good.
Oh.
Or you can just plain roast the squash.
I'm
So
going in.
that one is the butternut.
Yum.
The acorn squash, it's so beautiful on the plate, and then the delicata. And
This
a little
is the
trick, that's
delicata?
the delicata.
I need
That's
to
what
try
it looks
that.
like. Now, this one here is the spaghetti squash. I actually sliced it into rings. It cuts your cooking time a little bit. A whole spaghetti squash can take up to 30, 40 minutes in the oven. But if you slice it into rings like this, you also get longer strands, so it actually looks a
good
little
idea.
bit more like pasta.
And then you
that
shave
takes about,
that off,
And you
and
just take a fork and you just separate the strings, and it just
Oh
comes
my
right
goodness,
out
look
like
at that.
It does look like
Okay.
spaghetti.
It does.
What
So
temperature are you
fun.
roasting all of these at?
375, 400, 15 to 20 minutes.
Well, Stephanie's the only one over here eating, but you also have a recipe.
I love squash.
You have a recipe
pass
that
it
we all
down.
can eat. What is this? Because it looks like a cake.
That is, I'm going to let you guess. Take a bite and you tell me what vegetable is in there.
Well, it's got to be a squash.
It's spaghetti squash
It
because
is
it's
a
stringy.
spaghetti squash.
But why does it taste like pie?
Coconut. Doesn't it taste like coconut? Tastes like
Oh,
a
it
coconut
does.
pie.
This is
So
amazing.
you know I
with
love
custard.
turning my veggies into
Oh.
desserts.
Oh, that's
so
amazing.
It is.
Oh, I'd
so
love
fun.
this recipe. It's so good.
It is. Well, White Picket Produce can deliver fresh, organic, seasonal produce to you right at your home or your office. All you got to do is call them and go to their website for more information. Thank you guys
Thank you
for giving me an
having me.
education in squash. I
My
needed
pleasure.
it.
Enjoy.
And next, we get ready to sell our homes in Suncoast for sale. We'll be right back.